Todd, great to see you. Fresh off
Great to
of
see you too, Jared.
Southern States, although we did not get to hang out as much as we wanted to, as we talked about, but it was fantastic.
It
Uh,
was. We both came back with a little bit of a tan.
we did. We got some sunshine. The roof pool was the way to go. It was a 25-minute shuttle to the beach, which I did once, and then I just kept going back up to the rooftop pool. Did you get up there?
I did, but I did spend more time at the beach. Actually
Okay.
did. Clint and I every morning got up early in the morning. We walked to the beach before
Nice.
everything started. So that was fun.
You did it better than I did. Then I'm very jealous because it was a beautiful place. Southern States was amazing. Kudos to the team that put that on. It was fantastic. So
Kayla's a rock star, isn't she? Just her creativity and what she does for these comps. She puts her heart into this. I mean, obviously
who is
Tal's a
that?
great organizer.
Yes,
Ish,
Kayla.
and
Yeah,
Kayla,
Kayla. I would also say Jessica Foster did
yes,
a great
yes,
job. Like the as a speaker and as a affiliate, they just were like, what do you need? Like they
yeah,
just took care of us, which I'm sure it's like you put all this time and effort and investment in something, like they just took great care of us. So uh
absolutely.
I
Very
would
blessed.
say that kudos to the Atlanta chapter of NARPM, which I know you're a big part of. They crushed it. It was a great event.
Yeah, was.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you a bunch of personal questions, Todd, about your growth. But so that people know like where you are today, do you mind just kind of introducing company size, number of years in business, ideal client, like walk us through what we need to know about how you run your business at DK Rentals.
Okay. So we have, including myself, we have 12 employees. And that's a mix of remote team members and W-2. And we're based in Roswell, which is the northern suburb of Atlanta. We cover the whole metro Atlanta area. And we've been in business since 2007. And we're at about 435 doors right now.
Great. 435 doors. I remember meeting you. You were like sub 100 or just over 100. Um, And while that's like, 4x, which is a big deal, you've been very important on the kind of doors you're taking on and the kind of growth you're taking. So kind of walk us through like what your strategy is in terms of like the kind of doors and the owners that you want to work with.
Yeah, so we love everyone loves to brag about how many doors they have under management. And my business coach has really gotten us to change that conversation because if you have 10, 15, 20 doors that are sitting there vacant, they're not generating revenue for you. So we stopped talking about doors and we started focusing on rented doors because rented doors are the ones that generate revenue. So that's kind of changed your shift in your focus. Even our KPIs, our company-wide bonus plans are based on rented doors, not total number of doors. So that's one of our focuses. And so if you're focusing on rental doors, that means you need to have rentable doors, right? So we're much more focused now on bringing on houses that the owners being realistic about the rent amounts that they can get, and that the house is a good quality property that we can rent as well. So, as we talked about earlier, Jared, you did a great job in the conference of talking about a customer that you love, that you want to do business with. And I think we want to have a customer that we love. We also want to have a house that we love as well, because as I'll keep this clean. If you have a crappy house, it's going to only attract a crappy tenant, no matter how nice the customer is.
It's very true. And like there's some unique things about your business model from what I remember, and I'll let you fill in the gaps. I don't want to assume, but you're only getting paid if you've got a tenant in the unit. And if my understanding is right, you still charge a flat fee, right? Do you mind walking us through kind of like your business model and how you price?
So we do have a flat fee model. That was a big change. We've done that. It's probably been about 5 years now, I think, that we switched to a flat fee model. And so what we found is when we're doing percentage based, which is still what most companies do, and there's pros and cons. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but what we found with a flat fee model, as you can imagine, we used to have a lot of inner city, not very great houses. That our portfolio has now shifted to much nicer houses, and newer properties. So it's really going flat fee has helped improve the quality, because if a house rents for $3,000 a month and you're paying the same flat fee as if it's $1,000 a month, it's a better deal, quote unquote, for the client. But the reality of it is, our fee to rent the property, our fee to do the release renewals, those are still percentage based. So we are making a higher revenue per door on those nicer properties, but it's a very attractive attract new business when you give them a flat fee.
That was a great share. And in fact, you actually answered one of my questions, which is like, how do you keep up with inflation and how rent increases? So it sounds like you're still benefiting from the increase in rent when it comes to renewals and leasing fees, but when it comes to flat fee, you feel like you're standing out as an innovator in the market. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's right. Because like you said, if your percentage of the rent, as you increase the rent, then your percentages on the leasing and renewals is going to increase. The other thing that's nice too is if you're making money on repairs, which in my opinion, everyone needs to be making money on repairs because it's a lot of work. If you've got a 3,000 square foot house that needs to get repainted versus a 1,000 square foot house, it's going to cost more money, which means we're going to make more money on repairs as well. So every other lever increases with a more expensive house, except for the monthly property management fee. And so we're willing to have that one revenue stream be a little less than most other companies, because we make it up on the other levers.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That was perfect. That's exactly that's a kind of a short-sightedness that I think a lot of people miss out on when they think about, oh, I would never do flat fee. And I'm, again, just like you, I'm not saying you should be flat fee, but I love to have this conversation of like, what does it look like? What are all the dimensions that people should consider? So that's perfect. All right. So met you were, Todd, I think you were like first 20 clients of Rent Scale, which, I'm grateful for. Grateful for innovative clients like you who want to grow. I don't remember the exact number. I think you might have been sub 100. You might have been 150. I can't remember. But all I've seen is you grow and you go through challenges as you've done it. You've shared with me the coach that you've brought in. You've shared with me kind of, your journey, which is amazing. Like it's so great as I grow my company to be working with a client that's growing their company. And so I just want to kind of talk about that growth before I ask you to like really give me the details that you would give an advice. Let's just talk about the growth, talk about the personal growth, talk about the professional growth. Like, what are some of the obstacles you overcame in the last 5 years?
Myself. I mean, I really was the biggest obstacle, and what I mean by that is I really was not very focused on my business. I was chasing a lot of rabbits. I was looking at doing a big monster um, hotel resort in the Bahamas, and then I was looking at doing working in a pharmacy. I spent a lot of time in Puerto Rico with a pharmaceutical company, and so they're all quote unquote, sexier industries, and took a lot of my time and energy. I learned a lot from those. But in the meantime, this little property management business that I wasn't focused on at all was just kind of consistent and hanging in there and paying the bills, quite honestly. And really, one of the big turnarounds when because if you look at it, where we're at 435 is great. We've grown a lot, but we've been around since 2007, and so it's really not that impressive when you look at the total number of years. But when you look at what point did Todd really start focusing on this business and stop the distractions and work on this, is when we really started to grow. Yes, not number of doors, but more importantly, profit. What's our profit margin per door? Because even that's another KPI we're good at sharing with everyone. We feel comfortable is revenue per door, which is great. Right, that's a great KPI, and I hope everyone's on the NARPM chart of accounts. If you're not, you really should get on there. But so we can share our KPIs like that. But to me, again, what really matters is how much profit am I making per door, not necessarily how much revenue I'm making per door.
Well, that makes it pretty black and white, which I appreciate. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think that shiny object syndrome is something we all suffer from as entrepreneurs, and myself included. And you just calling yourself out on that. What is it like? The first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem, and we all have
Right.
the shiny object syndrome problem, which is great. But what's great is that you actually got through that and you were able to do that, which is why I want to talk to you today, and I'm glad you shared that. So 5 years later, I'm thinking back about, maybe it's even longer, but 5 years, I'm thinking back about talking to Todd. Scale's a budding company. You've got DK, which is exciting. It's like, what do you wish you knew then? If you could write yourself a letter, like what would you say back to Todd 5 years ago?
Yeah, so I would say first thing is I used to be a member, I used to be part of BNI, which is I'm sure you're familiar with Business Network International, largest business networking group. And I was in a BNI meeting. I was there in BNI for 5 years, and one of the members of our chapter said was talking about the importance of a business coach, and he said before you go hire the next person, hire a business coach. And really respected this guy. And there was a business coach in our chapter. His name is Jeff Smith, which Jeremy you've met multiple times. And so sit down with Jeff, and I said, Jeff, I can't afford you right now. I lost a big client. I've lost some staff. I'm really hurting right now. I can't. And I just said, but I trust you. I said, given the situation that I'm in, would you hire you? And that's your first because I have no money. And he said, let me put it this way. We're not going to sit down and talk about mission statements and vision and values and all that kind of stuff. We're going to focus on getting, because we can't afford to hire a BDM. We can't afford to hire a Red Scale. I don't think you might not have been around at that point. But he said, we're going to do everything we can to get you out of operations. Because we need sales right now. We're desperate for sales. So that was the first task he had me, was getting to the point where we can get more doors in the house so we can start to rebound. And so that's the first thing I'd say is um, find a good business coach and hire them. And now Jeff's been with me almost 8 years, and if I shared the numbers with you, people wouldn't believe it on where our profitability was the day that Jeff and I first met and where we are right now. So that's the first thing I would do. Um, Second of all is get engaged in NARPM. Oh my goodness gracious. We have the
Let me just
best
jump
trade
in
industry around.
before you go to second, which I think is amazing.
Okay.
Like because I know where you're gonna go with NARPM. I love that you talk to somebody when you think you couldn't have afforded them, right? Like you talk to Jeff, and yes, I've had the fortune of meeting with Jeff multiple times. And I just think that was so great that like, you're like, hey, I don't know if I can afford you. Can I afford you? And he asked you and he said, hey, here's how I can afford you. So I just wanted to comment on that because I thought that was amazing. And like with the benefit of hindsight, I should say, looking back on that, he's been a great mentor to you and he's been awesome. So I wanted to cut you off, but keep going. I just wanted to say that because I
Okay.
think that was going to get lost in translation otherwise.
Right, because actually that's true. Jeremy, Jeff, the three, we all got together. We talked about hiring our first BDM and putting together, the how we're going to interview him, et cetera. So that's, yeah, we worked closely together. I forgot about that. So that's the first thing I would do is get a good business coach. Second thing is, as I started to mention, is NARPM. My goodness, if I had joined NARPM, or I shouldn't say, I joined NARPM. I just didn't attend any meetings. I just paid so I could put that label on my website. But the wealth of knowledge, first of all, the wealth of knowledge there, the training that's there, and the willingness of everyone wanting to help everyone else. People outside our industry just can't understand why our quote unquote competitors share all their secrets, share all their knowledge, and it is there's the best karma. It's all about, as we used to say in BNI, it's giver's gain. It's all about giving, and I love to give when I go to those because so people have blessed me and given so much to me. So that would be goodness. Get involved with NARPM. Go to the conferences because it's the same thing. It's it was before I'm too busy or I can't afford it. Is reality of it is if you're too busy and can't afford it, that's even more reason why you need to go. And so because there's so much you're going to learn so much, and if you go to a conference and you pick up one thing, one nugget, and you actually implement it, that's going to pay for the conference for that year many times over. So that's the second thing is get involved in NARPM.
That's great. Cannot disagree with any of that. I think it's great. So, from the outside, Todd, like I want you to make it about what you've seen. But, working together for 5 years, like you tend to pick up on some things. And I have also noticed that you travel and you take considerable time off in a good way, not a bad way. And you immerse yourself in like this international culture. Do you want to share anything about kind of like your international travel and how that has helped you kind of be a better leader?
Yeah. So with as our whole industry has moved to, originally we call them, VAs, virtual assistants, and now we call them remote team members, which is a great, description and going that direction. We were kind of early adopters of not just having someone that's going to help answer the phone that's overseas, or just being a quote unquote assistant to someone that's here in Atlanta. Is we really took it to the whole nother next level of really making our folks that are not here in Atlanta become part of the team. So how do you do that? It was, and again, it was easier for me, like as Jeremy, as you mentioned, because I do, do travel internationally, so I feel comfortable with a lot of the cultures. I speak Spanish. That's so it did make it a little easier for me, but there's no reason why other business owners can't do that. And that is to treat your if you don't have RTMs, first of all, go ahead and do it. Just bite the bullet. Don't wait till you have all your procedures perfect in place. Go ahead and get the first RTM. I mean, there's a great folks out of Raleigh that that I talk to at every conference, and I've been talking to multiple conferences. Did you get an RTM? Did you get an RTM? Did you get an RTM? And the last time I spoke to them, like 6 or 7 months ago, they still didn't get their first RTM. I saw them at Southern States. I said the same thing. I said, I hope you guys got your first RTM, didn't you? They said, yeah, now we have four. So, and that's a constant story, right? You get your first one, it's like crack cocaine. You're like, I got to have more of this. I mean, because they're so great. so, that's the first thing. Get your first RTM, and then you'll figure out where they can fit in, and you don't have to have everything perfect, but then and get them engaged, and don't treat them like real people, and then spend time with them. So what I do is I get together with my team. I go to Colombia. I've got 5 folks in Bogota, so I go down to Bogota. We get a big conference room. We spend the whole week together in that conference room, and and that team building that happens. Magic. It's magic when you spend time with your folks, your RTMs in person with them. They're so appreciative, and they learn so much. And you just, by sitting in a conference room, listen to someone take a phone call, then you can immediately give feedback. You don't get that when you're not sitting there with them and going out and having drinks together. And you guys are great, Jeremy. You guys always do your offsite retreats and get big Airbnbs and have fun together. It's the same concept. But jump on a plane and go to Mexico City if your folks are there. Jump on a plane. We're in Bogota, and so that built a tightness. The other thing we do with our RTMs is when we do our business goals for the year, we say if we have so many rented doors, this is what the bonus is going to be. If we lose less than summer doors, it's scaled. So we have some KPIs. We have 3 KPIs. I want to keep it simple that we measure each year, and the bonus is the same for everyone at DK Rentals. Doesn't matter where you are. So if everyone's getting $1,000 bonus, you know how much that's worth to someone who's in Colombia? And that's a lot of money. That's a ton of money. But the message that we're sending is they're just as important as the people that are in Atlanta. Okay, so that's one thing we do is bonus structure is the same. At least our team bonuses are the same. And then what's evolved, this wasn't anything strategic, it just evolved that way. We allowed it to happen, is that my team members especially in Bogota, have, as they've learned the business, and they're already incredibly talented folks, is that they run the business. So I joke about the fact that my virtual assistants or my RTMs are the people in Atlanta, because my folks in Atlanta, outside of sales, report to remote team members in Colombia. So their boss, the person that determines their raise, the person that does their evaluation, the person that hired them, the person that trained them, is actually in Colombia.
Wow.
So we've taken it to a whole nother level. And how are we able to do this? Because the folks that the quality, I mean, the folks that I have in Colombia, I could never afford that quality of person here in the United States. And so that's kind of something a little bit unique thing that we've done is we've really taken that whole remote team member paradigm, to a whole nother level. And then I bring them up here. The folks that have visas, I bring them up here for training. You've met Esteban, I'm sure, Jeremy, right? Esteban's been up here, comes up every summer.
Yep.
Andrea's been here a couple of times. We lost our leasing agent. She came up here. She hired her new, because she runs all of our leasing department. She hired our new leasing agent, trained her. So I bring them up here as well, so they're familiar with the product. They meet our clients, get to see the houses. So willingness to invest in them, not just your local folks, is also been a huge differentiator for us.
All right, you're sharing the goods. I love it. Yeah, obviously at Renscale, we always say it's a tiny but mighty team. We talk about it all the time, getting them together. You're doing that already. We brought many of our VAs in, which is amazing. I do just think like proximity is a superpower. Like getting your people together, getting them, to understand what's happening is amazing. And that's, what we're doing. That's what I think I'm seeing you doing, which is awesome, Todd. All right, so talking about people, which I actually feel like you do the people thing really well. Like I really want to lean in on this. Um, what's your recommendation for somebody like, letter for the future? What do you wish you knew before? How can you, how did you not treat people the way you wanted, or how could you treat people the way that you want to do forward? I think this is actually the best question I'm going to ask.
Is how do I treat people better now than I did before, or
Yeah,
what?
like what's your recommendation? What's your letter from the future? Like, hey, treat people this way. I think that, I will just say, as I give you time to think about this, the way we treat our people is actually one of the most exciting things about how we grow our business. So what are you doing today that you wish you knew 5 years ago? Are you treating your people
Yeah.
different, or did you already have it figured out 5 years ago? Which is
Oh, definitely
okay.
not.
Good
I,
happening.
I was I would say one thing is don't go cheap when you're hiring folks. And I was definitely guilty of that. So I think our newest BDM that we just hired, that rent scales, training right now, Tim Burton. I mean, Tim is a seasoned salesperson. He knows nothing about real estate, property management, but he's been doing sales forever. And so, bringing on someone of that caliber, versus some of the folks I look back on and I cringe thinking about some of the BDMs that I brought in before. I'm like, yeah, I had to train them. Thanks, Todd. But I think that's a
No
huge, huge.
comment from me, but I
That's
appreciate
right. So, so that I think that's one looking back as far as the people is really is go ahead, and I mean that's hard, right? When you're a younger company and you don't have a lot of access to resources, but man, it is so expensive to replace people. There was a presentation at PM Grow a few years ago from the Australians, right? Because the Australians have always kind of been ahead of us as far as property management, and they did a study on how much it costs and how long you are paying that cost when you lose a property manager on your team. And they had a curve, and I remember seeing that curve, and you were losing money up to 12 months later, after you lose a property manager. And why? Because your property manager is your person that's building a relationship with your clients. So goodness gracious, if I had just really implemented that and just invested on higher quality folks, that would have saved so much in churn, and then which will churn both in employees and then churn in clients. So really, you need to obviously get to look at what you can afford, but really go out there and get some good quality folks on your team, like you've done, Jeremy. I mean, you've done a great job of that. You've put together an incredible team.
Thank you. I've way overachieved. I will tell you that, Todd. My biggest brag is the people that work for me still work for me. Like I just feel like I've overachieved. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm watching you do that too, Todd. Like you're building a good team. Um, so kind of parting shots, like looking back. This is so much fun, by the way. Like I'm thinking about like what I've learned in the last 5 years since I met you and like what we've done. What would you do different? Like what are your parting shots? Like what you're like, hey, if I knew what I knew then, this is what I'd really be doing.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we did touch on is really on the BDM side. We as owners, most of us are guilty of saying we're the the best salesperson on earth, or and so the reality of it is, and we I was in a red scale meeting this morning. I said we suck. We don't follow all the process and procedure. We don't follow because we have a couple hours on one day and we do our follow ups, and then we don't touch it because we're putting out fires the rest of the week. We may know the industry real well, but we're terrible as far as following good sales processes. And so, again, obviously, day one, you can't do this. You can't go out and hire a BDM, but you should be as someone starting a property management business. You start looking at your plan. You need to be planning from day one. You need to have a goal of when you're going to go hire your first BDM, because you're not going to take it to the next level unless you decide and you hire an incredible operations person who's going to run the business, so you can be that BDM, but you
Yeah.
can't be the business owner and the BDM. To get much, in my opinion, much beyond 40, 60, 60 doors. And so that's something that it took me a long time to do. And as you know, I mean, we our goal now is we don't ever want to have we want to have two BDMs, because salespeople, they're finicky. They jump around. They leave, and I'm sick of having a BDM and the BDM leaving, and then Todd has to jump back being Mr. BDM again. So that's why now, our goal is to always have two BDMs, and not just one. So that was the other piece of the puzzle. It's real important, is to go out and get a full-time person focused on sales. Because how can you work on the business if you got operations to worry about and sales to worry about? That leaves no time to work on the business.
It does not. And I think that one of the things I learned from EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, is that strength of the owner is often the weakness of the business, right? And so, Todd, you're great at sales. I'm great at sales. And so it's the last thing we're going to like fix in our business, which is okay. Like strengths are great. It's how we start a company. It's how we do our thing. But if you really zoom out and you ever think about selling or letting the business like do its thing, whatever we're good at as the owners is usually the weakness. And
That's
so
great.
that's why I
Absolutely.
feel like Todd, that's why you and I are such a kinship, because we're like right there. We're like, well, just jump in and I'll do this thing, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. So, and just, by the way, I mean, we use rent scale every time we hire a BDM. We either use rent scale to help us find the BDM, but definitely whether we use rent scale to help in the interview process or not, they immediately are plugged into rent scale. We build it in the budget. That's how we do every one of our BDMs that we bring on board. And I'll tell you what, that's actually your recruiting advantage when you're a little company and you're competing on a really good resource with more established, bigger companies, to be able to say, well, yeah, but I'm going to invest, you know, X dollars in you from day one in your sales training. That all of a sudden makes a little company like what you have and I, Jeremy, look like a bigger company. And
Yeah,
so I think that's even an advantage when you're recruiting, trying to get a good BDM.
appreciate that. That may be my, like, I may just take the whole thing out and make that our sales, but exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to enable people like you who have a vision, who are like, hey, I know that I have a great company that I need to hire somebody who's great at what they do, but I just need to convince them that they should come to work for me. So thank you, Todd. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And that's
Absolutely.
exactly what we should be doing as small businesses, is investing in our people. So
Right.
appreciate it, Todd. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. And our one key KPI that we didn't hit Jeremy, was getting together for a drink at the Southern Conference. So we're going to make sure we hit it the next one.
I'm in. This seems like the easiest KPI I can possibly meet.